everybody. Welcome to another episode of Hidden Gems Podcast. And this is the show where we look at a streaming service and we try to find the hidden gems on that service that you can enjoy. It's so much fun. And I'm film critic Rachel Wagner, and Ryan is here.
Hey Rachel, it's great to be back with you once again. Had a bit of an off week, and now we're back, and it's really nice to be back. And before we started recording, it was like you were telling me about all the things you were doing because you're going to New York, and so you were
Yeah.
doing all the preparations, and I'm just like, wow. I swear you have that little device from that Hermione had in Prisoner of Azkaban that allows her to be in three different classes at the same time. I swear that's you.
When this airs, I will be in New York City having so much fun. I am so excited, not only to get to go to so many shows and get to go to one movie at New York Film Festival, but I'm also going to get to see a bunch of my friends who I've worked with but haven't actually met. Like my friend Conrado, who does Criterion Project with me. We're going to do an episode together, and we're going to meet for the first time. And we've been friends for, I don't know, 5 years or so, a long time. And so that's going to be fun. I'm going to meet Kristen Maldonado, who's a good friend of mine. And there's a bunch of people. So I'm pretty excited about that.
What shows are you seeing, if you don't mind?
Well, hopefully, fingers crossed. We had one that got canceled because of COVID. So we'll see what I end up actually getting to see. But right now, as of this moment, we're seeing. I'm going to see Hades Town, which I'm so excited about. I'm going to see Waitress, which I've never seen before, and then going to see Six and Tina, and then we were going to see Aladdin. That's the one that got canceled, and so now we're going to see Moulin Rouge, and so hopefully nothing else will get canceled, but we'll see.
Yeah, I've been to New York 3 times personally. I loved it every time. It was mostly one time it was tourism, but the other 2 times I was a part of Broadway workshops, and so
Okay.
it was a very very busy trip filled with shows and practices of practices. But I got to meet like Broadway people. They were all very nice. Got to see Phantom of the Opera at the Majestic
Mm.
Theater. Still gives me goosebumps to think that I was actually there, and it was an incredible experience. Got to see a dry run of Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark. We all
Oh,
know what
that,
happened there.
yeah, I'm jealous about that. Definitely.
It was actually not as bad as I was thinking it was going to be, because you heard all the horror stories about the poor
Yeah.
actor that fell
Yeah.
off the wire, and all of the jokes that Neil Patrick Harris made at the Tonys, and even Bono and the Edge were joking about it. It was like, oh, I was expecting like The Room, but for Broadway, but it turned out to be not too terribly bad. And so,
Yeah. No, I think it just got messy, but that I've heard it was actually pretty unique and interesting. And so that's cool that you got to see that. Yeah,
yeah,
I last time I went to New York City was in 2012, and I went for a podcast actually. I follow Rob has a podcast. He covers Big Brother and Survivor, and I'm a patron of his, and he's somebody I really look up to. And anyway, he had a live episode, and I actually went up for the live episode to New York, and then we saw Crazy for You, and that was really fun. So
yeah. And the last time I was there, we ended up seeing the musical Memphis, which
mm, yeah,
is
that's
just
cool.
super underrated musical. And I actually knew someone who was in the ensemble cast, because he would come down to Florida and he would do like Broadway type stuff, or
Hmm.
like workshops down in my middle school for like a week or 2 weeks. And as a thank you, he invited all of our theater troupe to go see him in the play. And that was like, that play was like my first real, like, that was my first Broadway musical that I really saw that was like really heavy, where it was like,
Hmm.
I don't know what to make of this. It's good, but it's like, oh boy. And it,
Yeah,
if
it
you
was
if you
actually an
know,
American in Paris. I always get those confused. Crazy for You and American in Paris, but anyway, and then I went twice in 2006 because my aunt was living in New York City at the time. So I took advantage. And so I went and saw a ton of shows. In 2006, I went in like April and then in the fall. And then I've been other times, but it's the best. I'm really looking forward to just having some time off, relaxing and enjoying us getting to, I'm probably most excited to just get to meet a bunch of my friends. So that's going to be cool.
Yeah, that's always nice. I'm gonna come out there to Utah one day, and we're gonna do a live thing together. I'm
Yeah,
gonna
that will
make
be
a
really
point.
fun. Well, what are we talking about today after that little jaunt through our times in New York City?
We're going to be seeing what's all the hoopla about hoopla. I'll make
Yes.
that pun work one day.
This is our fifth episode of Hoopla that we've done.
Yeah, and honestly, like I think the real hidden gem is not just what's on the service, but the service itself. I believe that's something you said a while back, but
Mhm.
honestly, the amount of stuff that's on Hoopla, and it's one of my favorites because not only can you watch movies and TV on there, you can read comics, you can listen to you can listen to music on there. It's like audiobooks. It's a far-reaching service. It's far more versatile. Plus, it's free if you have a library card, so
Mm.
it's low key like excellent.
Yeah, my favorite price, free 99. I like to say. Well, let's dive in. Let's talk about some hidden gems that are on the Hoopla. And I think, as you said, that the whole service itself is really the hidden gem because you can get a lot of good stuff on there. And it's similar to Canopy. Canopy is a little more prestigious, and Hoopla is a little more mainstream, but they're both great and free. So you really should check them out.
Although Canopy has been kind of loosening their grip a little on the stuff that they allow on there, because I remember I was just randomly scrolling one day and the Terminator was on there, and
Oh yeah.
I was thinking to myself, the Terminator is a really good movie, but like in the same ballpark as like pretty much all of A24's canon. It's like here's Terminator, there's A24. It's like they're far away from each other, but when we
Yeah, I
do
mean, I
another.
don't know though. I feel like there's a sort of prestige around Terminator though that it's like I don't know. For some reason, I'm not surprised by that, but I can see what you're saying. But anyway, let's dive into our picks for Hoopla. And why don't you go first? What is your first pick?
So my first choice is a horror movie from the late 50s, and I've been in a bit of a horror kick lately. Scary Mania is going on my channel, 31 horror movie reviews in 31 days. And this is one of the movies that I will be reviewing. It is House on Haunted Hill, released in 1959 and directed by William Castle. If you don't know who he is, he's basically the king of the B movie. He is known for a lot of things, but two relevant ones is that he and his production company were known for making a lot of movies, but on the cheap and on time. So, like, I believe there was a quote somewhere that said if William Castle was still directing today, he would be doing at least like 3 or 4 movies a year and they'd all be under budget.
Mhm.
That's who we're dealing with here. And William Castle was secretly like looking out for the future because he gave some guy named Francis Ford Coppola his start, and well, he went on to moderate success, I'd say. But House on Haunted Hill is widely considered to be Castle's like big thing, his masterpiece. It stars Vincent Price as a very wealthy man who invites a group of 5 or 6 people to his home and says, "Hey, my house is haunted. If you can stay the night, I'll pay you $10,000, no questions asked." And people are like, piece of cake. Turns out the house is actually haunted. And terror ensues. This is a B movie, so it's very cheesy, it's very over the top, but that's kind of what makes it fun in that way. Vincent Price is in here. He's one of the great horror movie actors of all time, and actors in general. People don't talk about Vincent Price anymore, I feel like, or they just remember him from like the Thriller music video, which his laugh is really good in that, and the monologue leading up to it is good also. But he's a really good actor, and he's having a lot of fun here. He makes every scene that he is in. and all of the guests are varying levels of kind of paranoid. There's one who is like, I'm not sure if I like this, and then there's one who's like, I'm getting 5 figures out of this. No, I'm staying. But the more and more weird stuff happens, the more it starts to get a little, it starts to get a little skeezy. And so this is a rather unique movie because not only is it on Hoopla, but it's also in the public domain. And it's weird because no one has picked up the rights to this, at least as far as I know. You would think with a movie like this, it would have been purchased by somebody, but it's still floating out there in the ether. You can find it anywhere in the Wayback Machine, on YouTube. Like just search House of Haunted Hill on YouTube, and it's right there. So it's funny how that situation works out. But it's a scary time. It's a fun, scary time. So if you haven't checked it out, I recommend it. And also, funny note, there's a skeleton in the movie, and the skeleton actually is credited on IMDb as the skeleton. It's hilarious.
Nice. I had never heard of this, so it's a very good pick for hidden gems. I thought at first when I saw it that it was that Mike Flanagan series,
That
the
is
Haunting of Hill
that's
House.
that's actually a bigger budget version of the same story.
Okay.
It's based off of, I believe it's called The Haunting of Bly Manor, if my memory serves.
Well, there's
Not Bly.
both. There's Haunting of Bly Manor and then the Haunting of Hill House.
That's the one, Hill House. I got the
Yeah.
two mixed up. They're the same thing, but obviously the Flanagan one's much bigger budget, much
Okay.
more.
When I first saw it, I thought, oh, did he think we were doing Netflix this week instead of
No,
Hoopla?
no,
That's what we're doing.
they're the same thing. It's like another Vincent Price movie, The Last Man on Earth. It's based on the same book as I Am Legend with Will Smith. They're
Mm,
virtually the same movie. They're just key differences to where it's like, oh, it's
right.
clearly different,
Right.
but they're based off of one thing. And so if you watch like both concurrently, then you're like, oh, there are some
Mhm.
similarities there.
Yeah. Interesting. I haven't seen either, so I think that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love Vincent Price. He's great. He's classic, and that sounds fun. All right. Well, my first pick is a movie called A Man Called Ove, and I love this book by Friedrich Bachmann. If you are a Hallmarkies fan, we do every month we do a romance reading wrap up, and in that episode we talk about other books that we've been reading. Not all of them are romance books, but in this last episode I talked about Anxious People, which is another book by Friedrich Bachmann that I just read for book club. And I loved that too. And he is just such a great writer. He does a great job with characters, and you really come to know and understand and feel for these characters. He's just great with character motivation and stories. And this he's a Swedish author, and his books have obviously been translated into English. And this is a Swedish movie, and so got subtitles. It is his most popular book. Is called A Man Called Ove, and this was actually got some attention from the Academy. It was nominated for Best Foreign Film, and I want to something else. I want to say adapted screenplay or something like that. But anyway, it got some attention from the Academy, which you don't always see for foreign films. It was nominated for Best Foreign Film and Best Makeup and Hairstyling for the Oscars. And so it got some attention from the Academy. And I really enjoy this whole story. It's kind of similar to like As Good as It Gets, where you sort of have this curmudgeonly old man, or Gran Torino, those kinds of stories. This curmudgeonly old man, he's very sad because he lost his wife, and he's basically considering suicide. And then he meets this immigrant family, Iranian family, and he starts kind of interacting with them, and it starts to they learn more about him. He learns more about them. Like I said, kind of like Gran Torino in a lot of ways. But he's definitely a little bit unlikable. But as you get to know him, get to understand his backstory, you start to feel for him, and it's great. And I think Rolf Losgaard is really great as Ove. He just captures that sort of, again, curmudgeonly old man kind of thing really well. And I don't know how they supposedly they're making a US version of this movie with the story with Tom Hanks. And I don't know how that is going to happen because
How is that even possible? Tom Hanks is like one of the nicest people alive.
that's what I feel. And then also he just doesn't seem old enough like to be the part. I don't know. I don't get it. We'll see whatever happens, but yeah, it's a very good movie and it's a very good book. Better book. So if you're looking for a good book recommendation, I couldn't recommend more highly Friedrich Bachman's books. He is a very good writer. And Anxious People is very good. He it's about basically there's these people they're all coming to look at an apartment and then all of a sudden it gets taken over by a bank robber. There's a hostage situation, and so it's all these people all in this like small space, all strangers, all interacting. You get to know all of them throughout the course of the book, and including the robber. It's really good. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, I had heard of this movie. I've just never gotten around to see it. It just, when I heard the premise of this, I just was joking around in my head. No wonder the guy's so upset. His mother named him Ove. It's like it's one letter away from Oy vey.
Yeah. 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 I don't know if it's more common name in Sweden. I don't know. But like I said, if you are looking for a good book recommendation, I especially highly recommend the book. But since this is a movie podcast, I also recommend the movie. It's good too.
There was a former pro wrestler and his name was Ole Anderson, and like Ole Anderson is like Ole and Ove. They could have formed a
Mhm.
team together.
Yeah, I wonder if it's Scandinavian, if they have Scandinavian roots. But all right, well, what's your next pick?
So my next pick is a follow-up to a pick that I made a very long time ago. I recommended Hellboy to the Golden Army, and I said that I would recommend the first movie one day. Well, that day is today. So my next choice is Hellboy from 2004. Coming from the mind of Guillermo del Toro, we all know who he is by now. Shape of Water, Pan's Labyrinth. I could go on, we all know who he is. This is based on the Dark Horse comics of the same name. Tells the story of a tells the story of a mission in World War II in which the Nazis tried to open the portal to seemingly hell to unlock the seven gods of chaos and bring the war to an end. It goes horribly wrong, however, something comes through the portal, the son of the devil himself, with a very large red right hand. Hellboy's played by Ron Perlman, and he's effectively the best and also the worst kept secret in the US government because as Tom Manning, played by Jeffrey Tambor, I believe that's his name. As he says, well, our guest just so happens to have be 6'5", is bright red, has a tail, and is government funded. So there is that. However, he being Hellboy, pronouns. Hellboy is tasked with finding demonic creatures and putting a stop to them if necessary. This could have been so easily just like a demon hunter fights demons movie. There is the elements of that. However, because this is Del Toro, it makes you feel sorry for the more or well the creatures that are not of this world, and in a very real way. Hellboy is the son of the devil, yes, but he has emotions. There is a subplot where he falls in love with a woman named Elizabeth, played by shoot, I can't remember her name right now. Selma Blair, I
Selma
believe.
Blair, yeah.
Yeah, Selma Blair. And she has the power to shoot fire from her hands and set other things on fire. And she knows that she is like, we can't be together because I'll hurt you, and just that can't happen. And so it's very tragic there. Hellboy's friend, if you want to call him, is named Dr. Abe Sapien, who is a basically the creature from the Black Lagoon, except legally distinct from the creature from the Black Lagoon. He's played by Doug Jones. He's a lot of fun. Hellboy's father, or the guy that recovers him, is Dr. Trevor Broom, played by the late John Hurt. May he rest in peace. They have a nice relationship together. And this is just this is just a comic book movie that never really gets made anymore. There's so much detail here. There's so much practical effects, and there is CGI, and that's good as well. But all of Hellboy's makeup is it's literally Ron Perlman in the makeup. Must have been must have been really hard to get in and out of that makeup all the time, but it makes it all the better. And whenever you see something mystical, they do as much practical stuff as possible. So when you see the CGI, you recognize there's a tactical world and that the CGI also exists. It's a tool, it's not the entire canvas, for lack of a better word. This is far darker than Hellboy 2, so be prepared for that. However, if you're looking for comic book movies off the beaten path, I can't recommend Hellboy #1 enough. I mean, they should have done Hellboy 3 with Del Toro, but they didn't, and we got the really awful one with Michael Shannon, but let's not talk about that.
Yeah, I've seen this and I remember thinking it was pretty good. I don't remember a ton about it, but I remember thinking that it was pretty entertaining and nice to see something kind of small and like where there isn't a huge beam battle and then at the end, kind of a thing, which is in a lot of even good comic book movies. It's nice to see something on a smaller scale sometimes.
Yeah, and I love, I think I brought this up, but I love just how detailed everything, all the characters are, not just like in their character arcs, but like how detailed the creatures look. Like Ape Sapien looks like a real like fish man. He has to wear this apparatus out in public because he can't breathe above water, so he's got to wear this water harness thingamajig
Hmm.
whenever he's outside, and he's got actual gills and his hands. Whenever he sticks it to something, he can see like the readings of it through the door. And Hellboy is not just like plain red and that's it. Like his hand is so detailed and like he's got squiggles in it and lines and it just this movie's so good. It really is. Del Toro went above and beyond like on this
Hmm.
one.
Well, my next pick is on a much smaller scale than oh boy, Left Turn, as you like to say.
Hard
It's a
left.
movie called Autumn Stables, and it's not a Hallmark movie, but it's made by the same people who make Hallmark movies. I think you can watch it on Hallmark Movies Now on the streaming service. Anyway, it's called Autumn Stables, and it's actually a really good one of this kind of story. When I first heard the story, I was like, oh, that sounds really boring. But I actually really enjoyed it. It stars Cindy Busby as this woman who her husband has passed away. She's still deep grieving, and she has to sell her farm and stables, and she sells it to Kevin McGarry, who makes a promise to her that he's not going to destroy the stables, but his real plan is to build on the land. And as as they come to get to know each other better, then of course she feels very betrayed when she finds out that this is the case. And it is a familiar story, but I thought it was very well executed, and I thought they had nice chemistry, and I really like Cindy and I like Kevin, so that was really fun to see them together. And we have actually this week on Hallmarkies podcast, we have our ranking video with Cindy Busby ranking her movies. And that's kind of a fun series that we do where we invite the actors on and we actually rank their movies right with them there, which is kind of crazy, but a lot of fun. Autumn Stables was not on that ranking because it's not actually a Hallmark movie, but it's still, if people want a really fun listen, you should check that out. It was a lot of fun.
I was looking it up on IMDb, and according to them, you can watch it on Hallmark Movies Now.
Yeah.
So that'll clear
Okay.
that one up.
There we go. So I think it was good, and they brought the emotion in because she's just lost her husband and everything like that. So, what about you? What's your next pick?
Well, remember your hard left? Well, now it's my turn for a hard left. This is a movie from 2011, directed by Lynn Ramsey, and it is called We Need to Talk About Kevin. This is a movie that I remember watching this for the first time really vividly. I think I remember watching this from Hoopla just randomly. I remember watching Chris Stuckman's review of it, not when it came out, but like a really long time afterwards, and I was like, I need to find this movie and watch it. And turns out I found it on Hoopla. And as I like to say, I was not prepared. It essentially tells the story of a woman named Tilda, or not named Tilda Swinton, she's played by Tilda Swinton, who is, I think, I believe that she's a free spirit, and she finds this man played by John C. Riley, and they hook up, and she unexpectedly gets pregnant, and she is not a fan of that at all. But she gives birth to a baby boy, and she does not like being a mother at all. And so, to the point that the son kind of begins to notice and rebel, but not like in the rebellion that you would see in like wearing a leather jacket or getting a barbed wire tattoo or drinking. No, it's much darker than that. And the boy grows up to be played by Ezra Miller. The grown up version is played by Ezra Miller. This is one, this is a very dark movie. That's all I will say. I actually was contemplating whether or not I should recommend it here, but because people actually watch my recommendations on here. I remember we got quote tweeted and someone was like, "My husband and I are watching Unstoppable, and I am on pins and needles right now." And I was like, depending on where she is in the movie, it's gonna get a lot worse. Because rest in peace to Chris Pine's foot. But this is this is an incredibly dark movie. That's all I will say. However, I do recommend that everybody watch it at least one time. That's why I'm recommending it, because it is incredibly well acted. Tilda Swinton is Tilda Swinton. We all know who she is. John C. Riley is really good. I keep expecting to think that John C. Riley has done nothing but comedies, and he has done more than a few, but he also had these littler roles that he's really good in that almost don't get any attention. Ezra Miller just he's not a good person in this movie, and which is I guess is a testament to his acting. But I mean, you could tell he gives a good performance in this movie because I stopped seeing Ezra Miller the actor and I saw this person and how I just did not like him at all.
Mm.
And really, that's all I feel like saying about this movie because it has one of the most shocking endings I think I've ever seen. That's all I will say. If you haven't seen it, like I said, I recommend watching it at least one time, but be prepared for what you are about to see.
Yeah, I've heard that. I haven't seen the movie, but I've heard that it's pretty intense. So,
Yeah, it's one of those movies that I believe I saw in a review once where it'll question whether or not you want to become a mother to begin with. So that's kind of what you're in for.
well, my next pick is going back to the 1850s, 60s, whatever, Victorian times. And we are talking about Nicholas Nickleby. And I think this is a really great example of a hidden gem because this movie just came and went. Nobody talked about it, nobody saw it. And it but has a great cast. Charlie Hunnam plays Nicholas Nickleby. And you have Nathan Lane, Jim Broadbent, Christopher Plummer, Jamie Bell, Anne Hathaway, Alan Cumming. The list goes on and on. So an incredible cast. And uh, Christopher Plummer in this movie is so duplicitous. He is so evil, and in like a very like realistic way. Like there's nothing campy or over the top. He's just a super bad dude, and he's great at it. And it's it's a great story, classic story. You've got your Dickens and everything like that. But Nicholas is a very likable character that you're rooting for. His relationship with Anne Hathaway is very sweet, and character, and it's just this journey of this character after his father um, is. I think it's just a really sweet story about he is trying to redeem his family. His father gets into gambling and has all this debt, and so he goes and he tries to change the future with by working with his uncle who's played by Christopher Plummer. And Christopher Plummer, like I said, is just terrible. He is such a villain in this movie. I mean, he's great at it, but he is very, very, very mean. So it's a great movie that I don't think enough people talk about.
You know, I only know Charlie Hunnam from like stuff like Pacific Rim or his run on Sons of Anarchy, and so I keep forgetting that he's actually an Englishman. And like I've only heard him do like an American accent because he did it for so long on Sons. So whenever I see him in an interview speaking British, I'm like, wait, that's not right, is it? And then I have to remind myself, oh, he's actually British. He just does a really good American accent.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, he's a good actor. He's, I think, in general, an underrated actor in movies like Lost City of Z and this and a lot of others. So, what is your next pick?
Yeah. So my next pick, and this is walking the tightrope because this is on the AFI's top 100 list. It's widely considered a classic. However, as far as like great American westerns go, I think that this is often forgotten in the discussion. It's called High Noon. This stars Gary Cooper as a sheriff of what appears to be just a one-horse town, and when the movie begins, it is simultaneously his last day on the job and the day he is supposed to be married. However, he learns that a famed outlaw that he put behind bars has been released and is coming back to town for revenge. However, as he is preparing to meet the outlaw, the town is not too happy that this is going for a round two, and consistently either try and convince him to get out or just forcefully tell him just get out of here. When I saw this movie to review it for the AFI project, it was like I was like I got so sucked into it when the townspeople were like, "Oh, get out of here! We don't need you." I was like, the sheriff would be like, okay, but I only just tried to protect you, so I guess I'm chopped liver, I guess." But the more I thought about it, the more it was a lot deeper than that. This movie stars Gary Cooper, who was a legend, and this was, I believe, if my memory serves me right, one of his last performances. I'll have to look it up later, but I believe his career was winding down by this point. I'm either thinking of him or Alan Ladd, but Gary Cooper is a legend, and he's really good here. And he really steals every frame because he starts out really happy and then he realizes, oh, this person's coming back to town. I gotta go to work one last time. And when the people are like, we'd rather take him than you, it's kind of heartbreaking because he knows that he has to meet this head on and protect this town no matter what. And the people are just being generally ungrateful. This is lacking in a lot of like shootouts, so be prepared for that. This isn't like there isn't a really big shootout at the end. It's literally, I think you can count the number of bullets fired in this movie on one hand and have fingers to spare. But what makes the movie good is the dialogue between Gary Cooper and the town and his future wife and all of that. This movie is really good.
Yeah, this is really good. Even if you think, oh, I don't like Westerns, because I'm not like the biggest Westerns person, but this is really about these characters, not as much about like traditional Western tropes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
And it's also interesting to learn about how this movie was made because the director, Fred Zinnemann, was on the Hollywood blacklist, that whole deal with the communists and all of that. And he was eventually, I believe this was the last movie he made before he was put on the list. Again, I'd have to look through my review notes because I typed out a whole big thing, but it was a scary time because it was like he and Dalton Trumbo and just
Mhm.
a bunch of people who were on the list, and I believe if I believe I read in an interview that Zinnemann tied that whole blacklist thing into this movie, and like I said, I'll have to look into my notes, but it's one of those movies that's almost as fascinating to look up how it was made rather than watching the whole thing in its entirety.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, my next pick is a very strange comedy. I realized this last week or so that I like strange comedies that other people don't seem to like because I really enjoyed Venom 2. I thought it was hilarious. And I also think this very weird comedy called Raising Arizona is very funny. This is by the Coen brothers, and it's their comedies don't always work for me, but this one is really funny. It's Nicolas Cage, Holly Hunter, and they play this couple that aren't able to have a baby. They want to have a baby. They hear there's this family that has quints, I think. Anyway, they have multiples, and they say we have more than we can handle in a news thing. So they say, well, they've got more than they can handle. Let's go take the baby. And so they go and they take the baby, and it's I mean, normally that would be obviously in real life, if somebody kidnapped a baby, that would be terrible. But this movie is very absurd and crazy, and it's a, it's you can't take it that seriously. It's a very silly movie and very funny. So yeah, it's one of my favorite of the Coen Brothers comedies.
Yeah, the Coens are filmmakers that just when you think they're going to do one thing, they do like a three or like a 180 and do a completely different thing. Like I
Yeah,
remember their most recent movie was Hail Caesar, which is a comedy, and
yeah, I didn't
coming up
like it. Did you like it?
no, I was not a fan, and that's
Yeah.
sad because the cast was awesome. George
Hmm.
Clooney, Josh Brolin, Frances McDormand, Jonah Hill, Alden Ehrenreich. God bless him. He did have the best moments of the movie, but I don't
Yeah,
know. I just was not a fan. But and
agreed.
then at the end of this year, the Coen brothers are going to be doing Macbeth for A24. This black and white, very like just
Oh, is that the Coen Brothers? I didn't know that.
yeah. Joel Cohen is directing
Oh,
it.
interesting. Yeah,
So
I that'll be interesting. I like Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? I like Bad Sucker Proxy. I like Fargo. They have a lot of great movies. But yeah, Hail Caesar really fell flat for me.
yeah,
But
Big Lebowski is one of my all-time favorites. Oh Brother, Where Art Thou is super underrated. I, I just love the Coen brothers. They're like, okay, you know what? We can do Homer's Odyssey, or we can do Homer's Odyssey and set it in the
yeah.
Depression era South and have George Clooney sing, kind of badly, but still sing.
All right. Well, what's your last pick?
So my last choice is a mini series from the brilliant mind of Ken Burns. It is called The Roosevelts: An Intimate History. During the early days of the pandemic, when everything was just closed, I figured that this would be my opportunity to catch up on Ken Burns, and I ended up watching like the first half of baseball, but I watched all of the Roosevelts, and the Roosevelts are just fascinating human beings. Teddy especially, because if you know anything about Teddy Roosevelt, he grew up with a litany of ailments. Like he was asthmatic, like he had like a certain amount of time to live, but he was just like, never tell me the odds. And he just basically flipped any odd that he had on his head. Like he became president, he fought in wars, like he's just an amazing human being. And then there's FDR. I mean, we all know who he is. Longest president in American history, had polio, but still operated from office anyway. All the things in World War II, his relationship with Eleanor, which the movie does a very intimate deep dive on how that whole thing worked. And this is a Ken Burns production, so it is of incredible quality. And it when I was watching it, I was consistently asking myself, who did Ken Burns have to like raid to get photos like that? Is like you can't just go to the library and find things like that. You have to send probes out there and be like, "Hey, can we let us borrow your photos for like a couple hours so we can look through them?" It just fascinating stuff. I love these little series like this where it focuses on like a family because the Roosevelts, like them or not, were a dynasty of like the late 1800s, early 1900s. It just will never see their like again for a variety of reasons. But the Roosevelts are just very interesting and fascinating people. And who better than Ken Burns to illustrate their life? I mean, I don't think Ken Burns has made a bad thing in his whole career.
No, I agree. I really love his documentaries. Most recently, his one, A Country Music, was great. And I think that was 2019. And I've seen this one as well. And it's one of his not it's not as long as some of his other ones. So if you're if you're not up for a really long miniseries, then this one might be a good choice. And I also am looking forward to his new one coming out on Muhammad Ali. That one will be really good.
That's going to be fascinating.
Because all of his documentaries all have to do with the American story in one facet or another, whether it's the Civil War, or he's done ones on basically all the conflicts. He did one in Vietnam, one on the Pacific, one on World War II. He's done just, I don't know, he's done one on baseball, one on jazz, and just all different ones. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's a good pick.
yeah.
So my oh,
One last note on Teddy Roosevelt before we move on. Teddy Roosevelt survived an assassination attempt because he kept his really long speech and his glasses case in his breast pocket. And
mhm.
so when the bullet entered, it was stopped. Not only was he shot, he walked up on stage and said, "Hey y'all, I just got shot and here I am speaking anyway." It's so epic. I mean, forgive me for saying this, but Teddy Roosevelt was based. He really was. He
Mhm.
really was.
Yeah, yeah. Well, my last pick is a little hidden gem romantic comedy called Last Chance Harvey. And this stars Emma Thompson and Dustin Hoffman. And they had been in Stranger Than Fiction, which I also love, but they didn't have that many scenes together in that movie, but they have good scenes together. But I guess they'd gotten along so well that they wanted to do another project. And so then they did this movie together. And it's a very simple but very well done little movie about Harvey. He is this man who is over in London for his daughter's wedding. He's kind of estranged from his daughter, but he's trying to be involved. It's hard because she has a really strong relationship with his ex-wife's new husband or husband, and so he sees him constantly being kind of replaced, and that's hard. And anyway, he's lost his job. He's just struggling. He's in this really low place. He ends up meeting Emma Thompson's character, who is also very lonely. She has to deal with her mom and going on these blind dates and just uh, struggling. Anyway, they meet at this airport bar and they hit it off, and they basically end up spending the next like 48 hours together. And it's just a really good character study, and it's nice to see like an older, more mature kind of romance, and they have great chemistry. And it's a good one. I like it.
Yeah, this is one of my mom's comfort movies. Whenever it's
Mm,
on, I always see her watching it. It's either this one, Nights in Rodanthe, Something's Gotta Give with Diane Keaton and Jack
mm.
Nicholson. And I think there's one other, but it's escaping me at the minute. But it's legit like those three. Like whenever they're on, I always like see her watching it. It was actually a bit of a joke. Whenever I would go to the library, I'd be like, "Hey, mom, I'm going to drop some stuff off at the library. You want me to get you Nights in Rodanthe?" And she'd roll her eyes, but secretly she'd be like, "You know what? Maybe I can watch it." But Last Chance Harvey's one of her comfort movies for certain.
Yeah, I can see that. It is a very sweet little movie. So there we go. We did it. We covered Hoopla for our fifth episode of Hoopla. So, so let us know what you think of our recommendations. If you've seen any of these movies, we'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you've been watching anything on Hoopla, we'd love to hear about it in the comments section. So let us know what you've been watching. And Ryan, how can people find you?
They can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd at RyanCam20. Then there is, of course, my YouTube channel, which is just called RyanCam. I want to thank everybody. My channel is at 174 subscribers. I'm one away from 175, and then I'll be 15 away from 200. So I don't mean to like I'm certainly not trying to be like a subscriber beggar or anything, but if you haven't checked out my channel, please do. I would love to hit 200 by the end of the year. I started up my Scary Mania series throughout all of October, 31 horror movie reviews in 31 days. I've covered so far The Golem from 1920, Hexen from 1922, and today The Hunchback of Notre Dame, not the Disney movie, the one from 1923 starring Lon Chaney Sr. Tomorrow I'll be entering the 30s with 1931's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, also 1931's M from Fritz Lang, and then the day after that will be Freaks from Todd Browning. So, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. It's going to be a super fun month over the channel. So if you haven't checked me out, please do.
Yeah, y'all should definitely check it out. And make sure you check out Disney Scares Month going on. This is my 6th year, I believe, doing Disney Scares Month. And I have the collab with Lee from Drum Dums that we talked about the original Under Wraps. And then we're going to be talking next Monday about the remake. And I also have a bunch of other fun Disney Scares Month videos coming. So make sure you like and subscribe. And then also check out Hallmarky's podcast. Really great interview with director David Weaver this week. It was, if you want to learn a little bit about the behind the scenes of making a movie, all that goes into it, it was a really good discussion. So I highly recommend that. Plus, like I said, we have the Cindy Busby ranking. So it's a great week for Hallmarky's podcast, and lots of fun stuff going on. And thanks so much, everybody. Please like this video. Please subscribe to the channel. I'd appreciate that so much. And if you're listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. We really appreciate that. And if you are, I already said that. So if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. I really appreciate that. And thanks so much, Ryan. It's always so much fun. And we'll talk next week. Next week we're doing Netflix, so that should be fun. So bye, everyone.
Bye.